Great, thanks so much. Good evening. This is the, September 5th, 2024 meeting of the MSAD11 Policy Committee meeting. A quick introduction, I'm Tony Beat, the chair of the Policy Committee, and we'll go through and introduce policy committee members and then board members, I guess.
Molly Rogers.
Jack Pitteroff.
Joanne O'Brien.
Matt Lillybirch.
Other board members?
Jeff Hanley.
Linda Caputo.
Megan Carlson.
Kira Blodgett.
Sorry.
All right, great.
And Patrick,
Oh, and
superintendent.
thank you.
Yeah.
Superintendent, administrative staff. So we will call the meeting to order. Just a quick point of order for public commentary during the full board meeting. If people do want to speak, there should be a sign-in sheet and pen on the podium. So if you could please put your name and town of residence on there so that we can be prepared for that. So first item on the agenda, consideration to reopen policy ACAAA, the transgender and gender expansive student policy, for the purpose of comparing it to the Yarmouth School Department's policy. So we have that there. There was we had an opportunity to look at another district's policy and wanted to put that there if we wanted to reopen it. As we left it, the standing decision we had made last month after reviewing ACAAA was to put it on to this month's full board meeting for a first read. This committee can decide to reopen it and compare, see if we want to make any adjustments along those lines. We can also choose to not. But I wanted to bring it to the committee so that we could make sure we're considering all our avenues, parallels, that kind of process.
And so it was a request from
And
someone in the public.
there was an external request from someone in the public, not anyone in the district, had put the request out to make this comparison. Thank you very much, Superintendent. So if I can open it up to any thoughts.
Reading over the Yarmouth policy, I think the only difference that I saw, and maybe I misinterpreted it, but it sounded like if a parent disapproved, that policy would not go forward at all, that there would be nothing done. And if a child didn't want the policy notification to the parents, that it would have to be suspended until such time as an investigation went on whether the allegations that it would be harmful to the student if the parents were informed was done. And that seems to be very invasive. And also it strikes me that that's a lot of time and effort that we have to do investigating. And I can tell you from my personal experience that if a child came forward and said, it's dangerous for my parents to know, I would believe them, even if you knew the family. And as I said, I know this from personal experience, like growing up in my own family. So I don't want to get into this idea of investigating anybody to see if it's dangerous. If the kid says that I really don't want my parents to know because for whatever reason, they'll disown me, they'll throw me out, whatever. I'm not comfortable with that. I would rather keep our policy the way it is and trust our counselors to investigate themselves and leave it up to Pat to make the decision on whether a plan should go forward. So I would choose not to reopen it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like we as a committee and we as a board have done our due diligence on this policy several times. And I don't think by opening this up and continuing to belabor it, that we are going to do anything that improves the lives and situations for our students. So I don't think we should consider anything. I think we should send it to the board.
Right, the work we've already done.
Yes.
Molly, any thoughts?
I feel as though there's still a lot of conversation happening. So I'm unsure. I mean, I guess I'm not aware of the number of times I've been at one meeting that we've really worked on the policy that I was aware of. And then we were going to tighten it, and we've looked at those pieces now. This is new information. So do we just not consider the new information because we've already looked at it and tightened it? Or I was not on the board when we originally did the work, so I haven't done that same due diligence and been here for all of that work.
Right.
So I don't want to dismiss that work, but it seems like there's a lot of question and conversation that's still happening. And have we answered?
I don't feel like that question and conversation is like necessarily in our lane at this point. Like, it's our duty as a policy committee to have a policy for the school and expect it to be carried out.
And we do have a policy,
We do have a policy.
right? So
And it's a policy that roughly conforms to most of the other policies that have been adopted by other school systems. And
approved by our council, right?
approved by our board.
And our legal counsel
Legal
as well.
Yes, that's okay, yeah, legal counsel. And not only that, like I looked at the Yarmouth. And I don't think incorporating very much of that would be in the interest of our students. I don't think that policy has anything going for it that's going to make it function better than what we have.
Can I just say a couple things?
Sure,
Since
yeah.
there were new board members who weren't here when this was approved. So this actually went to the policy committee and to the board back in, I think it was 2021. And at that time, when it came to the board was told that there was a draft policy that was not required. Okay, so it's not a required policy at all. It was recommended that we have this policy because you have the main human rights act that you need to follow. And so the purpose of having this policy in place was twofold. One, it was to really make sure that there was a roadmap for our administrators to make sure, and our staff, like our guidance counselors, our social workers, to make sure that they're following the act as they're supposed to, right? These are the steps that you're supposed to take. So that was one. The other part to that was if the district is ever sued for discrimination, we were advised that having a policy demonstrating that you're in support of all students and all needs, that would put the district in a better light. So that was really kind of the background and why it came here. And it did come from the school's attorney, and they drafted that. I was asked to contact the Yarmouth School Department to ask about the implementation of this policy and whether it's gone well. And I was told there have been absolutely no issues at all with its implementation. It is completely, of course, within the realm of all of you to be making this decision. From my perspective, I have no issue with the Yarmouth policy. I know that the concern is making sure that parents feel like they're a part of this, which is what we've already and have always communicated to administrators, that we want parents at the table. they need to be a part of this process, right? And we need to make sure that students who don't want to share this with their parents, that they understand that their parents always have rights to their records, to their information. So while you may be afraid to tell them, you need to know that they're going to know about this. So let's work collaboratively to bring the parents in, okay, to make them a part of the process. That's what we've talked about. That's what we talked about in 2021 when policy approved this. However, there are times where a student may be at risk. And so we absolutely want to have an opportunity, if we do our investigation and we believe that there is the potential of a student being genuinely at harm, which that is the case from time to time, whether we like it or not, that we have that little caveat, that way of ensuring the protection of the student. And I believe that this policy allows for that as well. So from my point of view, I don't see the harm in this policy. I think it would maybe provide some comfort. In the policy that we worked on, the draft policy, it did talk about making sure parents were always informed, right? Unless there was an emergency. This way, just it says it differently. And it says it more systematically throughout the policy. It also references the main human rights more frequently so that people understand where some of these requirements are coming from. But the foundation, I don't remember who said it, maybe it was Joanne, the foundation of this is very much in line with the foundation of all of the policies that have been approved in school districts around the state. Because again, it's designed to align with main human rights. And making sure that parents understood the process is the reason why I provided to policy committee the support plans, right? So that you could see this isn't a willy-nilly thing. We don't have students that just come in and say, hey, this is what I want to do. There is really a very thoughtful process that we go through to make sure that that support, appropriate support, is provided to the students.
Matt?
I agree with Jack and Joanne and also with Molly. There's always gonna be discussion. I mean, whether it gets adopted today, tomorrow, or a year from now. We passed the budget in what, June, it got voted on, people still complain about the budget. Or there's conversation about the budget, so. The fact that our policy, again, wasn't drawn up on the back of my head. It was, a deliberate, thorough process incorporating, what we legally had to do, for lack of a better word, to cover our aspects of it. And then, oh, by the way, the overriding part being taking care of the students. So we opening it and maybe changing it from happy to glad seems like a waste of time. And regardless of what we did, today, tomorrow, if we rescinded the policy, there'd still be conversation. So you can't please everybody all the time.
Let's see, check in with other board members, thoughts on that? It's on the agenda for today.
May I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't, because I don't see the harm in opening it up and discussing the other district's policy. And what's the harm in looking at other things, other information? There might be something that would be useful in the town. And obviously there's no rush. We've been, this idea of reopening this policy has been some months coming. So what's another month to look at it and discuss it? And look at perhaps some other outside ideas. I do have some questions concerning things. I printed out all the strikeout language that was printed for the new policy.
I think that's for another moment. I
Okay,
think this is just to consider the reopening.
all right,
this
then
policy.
that'll wait. Okay.
Tony, I apologize, I was late.
Oh.
Thanks for letting me join.
Absolutely, yeah, no.
I was just gonna make a comment. I know I was previously on policy,
Yeah,
that we have a pretty usual schedule that we go through policies and review them on a regular basis, right? So just suggesting that this is one of those ones we did that with over the last several years, and it's noted at the bottom of the policy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Yep.
It was November, yeah.
This one went into effect, I said 21, but the first time was 22.
22, yeah.
Very good.
Linda, any thoughts? Yeah.
I mean, I would just, I guess, echo pretty much what's been said and also add, I think that the policy committee has done their job. I know it wouldn't hurt anything to open up the policy or look at Yarmouth but I don't see the need for it myself. I think policy has done their job.
And the language has been tightened up, right? We went from may to shall. We've posted how it's going to be implemented. We have the sheet that lays out the process. I'm ready to vote on this or go through this at the regular board meeting, and let's get it implemented and on the books, because I don't think delaying it is going to make things any better.
Yeah.
I don't think we've been delaying it by any means, and I think, given that it's a new request and that it's not, have we compared ours to others along the way? I've never had another district's policy that we've compared it to actively, so it's the first time I've seen this kind of request, and like you said, there's.
So our draft policies come to us in two ways. Generally, there is that rare occasion, but generally they are provided to the district through your association, through Maine School Board Association, and they will provide a template. So they will periodically update those whenever there's a change in the law. They may modify it. When there is a new law, they will create a policy if it is warranted, and that's what will come to you. The other way is that a policy will sometimes be drafted through the school's attorneys. That's how this policy came about. So this policy, the basis of this is the same throughout the state, right? All school districts that use our attorney, I can't speak for school districts that use other attorneys, but who use the Drummond and Wood zone, that this foundational piece is quite similar to every district. So to my knowledge, I mean, there may be other school districts that modified it like Yarmouth did, but Yarmouth's foundation is also similar to ours. They just made it uniquely theirs.
My take on it, I don't really see a huge difference. Actually, Joanne, your point that the investigation might take longer. I don't know that I quite saw that in there. My take was that it wasn't significantly different from the one that we have worked to develop and implement at the recommendation of our attorneys and through public commentary, special meetings, policy meetings. I don't see, I'm not compelled to open it. I can see that there's, some value in potentially comparing further, but then we're sort of kicking the can further down the road. I think the importance of this policy is the message that we're supporting all students, and that we're going to be clear about that, and we want to be active in that process. Maybe delay is too strong a word. I think we've given it thorough conversation since it was initially implemented in November of 22. We've been around it. I think the point that there will likely be discussion after this is accurate. I think it's there's been discussion beforehand. So based on that, I'm kind of seeing, we've talked about, are we going to reopen this policy after after recommending it to the board. So we had released it from this committee to the board. I'm not seeing a compelling reason to make that change there. So I'm kind of based on the conversation here, I'm hearing sort of a straw poll of we don't reopen that right now. Is everybody, let's see, are we, yeah, sort of in between, but yeah.
And
But the
and Tony,
majority-
if I can elaborate or add to,
Yeah.
sorry, not elaborate. There was a whole lot of public comment the first time we talked about this at the formal board meeting, and I think even with the administrators in the back of the room, we addressed some of the misunderstandings or misconceptions of what a student was or wasn't allowed to do. And I gave the example, and someone can live stream it if they want. If my son gets on the school bus tomorrow and says, I'm a girl, I'm gonna go into the girls' bathroom, it can't happen, type of thing. And with regards to the other policy, if our policy reads, and hits all the high notes, well, we don't need to spoon feed it 5 more times on 6 different pages. If it's in there, it's in there. If someone wants to read, down to the lowest level of detail, then we've got it all covered. And it's, not to say it's not an important issue as far as high or low or whatever, but this is the most we've talked about a policy, and I've been on the policy committee since I've been on the board, 4+ years now, type of thing. It's what it is. We've considered, other options. We've gotten feedback from the public. We'll continue to get feedback from the public and, have the board vote on it at the meeting. I'm just supporting where you were getting to.
Thank you. I think that's what I was, that we did, bring it to the board, and I think we can stand with that.
Do we need to make a motion?
That's entirely up to you if you want that on record. You can.
Make a motion not to reopen the issue of the AC AAA based on Yarmouth. Second. Vote.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of not reopening policy ACAA?
No or abstention?
All opposed, thank you. And then any abstentions, right? All right.
Okay, then that takes us to policy review.
Actually, if I could just jump to another point of order again for folks that have come in, members of the public that would like to speak tonight at the board meeting. The sign up sheet is on the podium right there, which will have a request for a name and a town of residence. MSAD11 residents will have the opportunity to speak first. And
If time permits.
if time permits, thank you.
All right, so the next policy then, or the first policy is GBO, the family care leave. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a required policy, and when I went through the review, I realized that we didn't actually have it in place. And it is a required policy. And it just talks about stipulations, what's required for family medical leave. So that members of our staff know what they can expect if they need to take time off to care for themselves or for their family. So I don't know if there are any questions about it. And Molly did send me behind the scenes some feedback. So I've tried to make some of those changes. I haven't had time yet to do all of them. Yeah. So any questions on the first one? Okay. The next one is the tobacco-free schools. Again, this is a policy you've had in place for years. As a reminder that you review your policies every 5 years unless there is a known change that warrants that we review the policy sooner. Whenever a policy is up to be reviewed, I am able to access a database through your association. And so I will pull up their template and I will compare it to what your policy says. And so if they've made some updates and some modifications, if they're fairly minor and they're easy for me to incorporate, I will do that, which I did here. Anything that you see in a double underline, I actually pulled from their updated template. Sometimes the changes are so extensive that I just give you their new policy, which is the case for the next policy. So, or for DJ-R, but
But Pat, if I can just say for the public who want to get online and see these, this no tobacco use was May of 2002. And it's been revised X number of times underneath it, and now it's just going around again for the 4-year plus year thing. But you can see that from April of 08 to December of 09, there must have been a change that required it to get reviewed, instead of waiting the 4 years.
correct.
for people who want to dig.
And all policies are on the board website.
I did notice one thing in here on page 2 of, so we're talking about ADC right now, I think?
Yes.
Yeah. So the first paragraph, let's see, there's a new information double underlined at the top of page 2 of ADC, right? And then the untouched paragraph right below that, at all times in quotes, means 24 hours a day, 364 days a year.
Mhm.
And I'm looking for 365 days a year.
Leap year.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Other than that, I was okay, but it's like those 23.5 hour towing services.
Right. Anything,
Paragraph right there as well.
you what?
Should there be a paragraph right there as well? Maybe I already said that. I don't,
Yeah, before
I
audit.
didn't bring my notes.
Yeah. Anything else for that one? Right, then the next one is the nepotism policy for the board. So you can see where I inserted an underline at the very beginning. Again, that's an update. And I made that correction, so it was a typo on someone's part. I highlighted a couple sections. Those I highlighted because they are not in the draft policy provided by Main School Management, but they are part of your policy. Because one, it's really important to realize or acknowledge that we could have someone who is employed and then have a relative elected to the board. So we need a way of managing that. Whereas if there is a member of the board, if you're already on the board and you have an immediate family member apply, we will not hire that person. But I can't just simply fire someone because a relative was elected to the board. So we have to have some language to address that. And that's what this does. So I was a little surprised that it actually wasn't in the template. There was a question of me about an assistant athletic director. No, we ended up giving a small stipend to someone, but there is not an assistant assistant athletic director. Other questions on this?
Should spouses be expanded to like life partner?
Well, if you look at
Does it? Oh,
immediate
sorry.
family,
Thank you, yeah.
area at the bottom, the last time the finance committee reviewed this policy, the committee spent a lot of time talking about and
Oh, there we go, sorry,
considering
yep.
what should make up the immediate family. And you all chose to add step relations, in-law relations, and domestic partner.
You just said the same thing over here, Tony. I remembered all the time we spent on
We
that.
spent a
I
lot
didn't
of
write
time.
it till the very end.
And there it is.
You did spend a lot of time,
Yes.
really very thoughtfully thinking
Yeah.
that through. Okay, anything else? All right, then the next one is DJR, bidding purchasing requirements. Yeah, who read this?
This is like the Federal
did.
Register, right?
It's
Yeah.
Federal Register, that's exactly what it is. It's 19 pages long. It tells you, right, at what level you the cost of something that you have to go out to bid, right? At what level that is, and again, the entire process that we must follow in terms of bidding and purchasing items. The changes were so significant that I just provided you the new ones. The new one, ours that we had in place was prior to 21. And this was updated by the feds in 21. So our current policy does not entirely accurately reflect the law. So it is important that we move this forward through your review process. So even if it wasn't up for reconsideration, it's one of those I would have pulled and put in front of you. So questions, comments, there were, before I sent it out to you, I made some changes, but it was start of school, it was a week before school. I honestly did not have a lot of time available to go through and look at every single section. So there are additional little errors with bullets not being there and maybe fonts are different. So I've gone through and I've made some of those additional changes. Molly did a great job in really trying to highlight some of that, so.
Yeah, there was some I's instead of ones.
Yeah.
Followed by a 2, and so it's like just.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, I didn't, just some of the details of it, when the school purchases, let's see, on procurement of items made with recovered materials. We have to say something when we purchase $10,000 or more worth of a designated item during a fiscal year. Like how often does some of this happen?
A lot of that doesn't happen frequently.
Yeah.
Where
Good to
we
have that.
ended up using this was with some of the COVID funds
I
that
was
we
gonna say the
received.
federal funds, that's where you
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so I always forget the name, something Davis Bacon.
Davis Bacon, yes, correct. And
So,
CFR Part 200, that's my world.
yeah, so that came into effect, and
Yeah.
what that said, if we were gonna spend at a certain threshold, that any contractor that we hired and employed, they had to provide us with all of their detailed payroll information so that we can make it available to the state and ultimately to the feds. And so we could only hire companies that were willing and in a position where they were able to provide that type of information to us. So that came into play pretty extensively over the last few years. This is a policy that if you asked Andrea, she could.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Now, this is more her world than
Two
mine.
more pages. Yeah,
And of course, this would be reviewed as well for any federal dollars, as Alyssa said.
Yeah.
So.
No, if we said if we live in 21 and we had found it in 21, do you know if it's on that schedule again?
No, we had approved ours prior to 21. So what will happen, we approved ours in 20. And then there were some changes in 21. So it's a 5-year cycle, so I would include it in the 5-year cycle, but we missed, I don't know how we missed that update, middle of COVID and all of that, and we missed it.
So another time we might catch it a little sooner to,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Maine School Management or Maine School Board Association, they send out annual policy summaries. And I don't know if I have one. And I typically will sit down and I go through every single time, so I'm not sure what happened. And obviously I missed something, so. Any questions on that one?
we've got a typo somewhere.
Oh, I mean, it's not worth.
We have lots of little errors that were already sent to me from Molly.
Yeah,
So she may have already caught it.
it's the paragraphs Roman 1 through Arabic 5.
Yeah. Nice,
Yeah, she caught some of that stuff.
And actually, this is a great spot just to reflect on the process. definitely, Pat, this is you adapting and adjusting and making these, corrections and stuff. Yeah. Your time's valuable. We appreciate that. I think, my understanding, to the policy committee is that as we do our review, as we send in, if we can send in some of the edits, don't quite know how to say that, but some of the, more, less content oriented edits, yeah, just send those to Pat.
Proofreading type
The
of stuff.
proofreading type things, send those ahead of time. I was gonna send an email and I thought it'd be better just to say it here. So, and I know we've all maybe done that from time to time, but maybe we can build that in as a little bit of a practice for us. And then we can get to the content stuff
Right.
here, yeah.
Mhm.
And then just to reflect again, it sounds like, yeah, there've been some updates on this manual, so what we had is now sort of,
The thresholds all changed,
Yeah.
so.
so that's why we're doing it now.
So that's all I had time for, to be honest, to be able to get through policy. We've already discussed the fact that you don't have a lot of policies this year that are due to be reviewed. It's a small grouping, in this particular cycle. So hopefully we will have time to get to the rest soon. I don't see that you have to meet every single month necessarily, but the other thing I want to see happen, is to do more job descriptions and to get caught up on those. Again, what's really hard, you don't have an HR person, so I'm spending my time creating a lot of these things because I can't just have my administrative assistant create a job description because she's not necessarily sure or aware of all of what the job entails. So just other aspects of my job sometimes slows down that process. All right, we do have 3 job descriptions here. These are for new positions that you built into the budget. So you separated the director of operations into director of transportation and director of facilities. So it was necessary to rewrite those job descriptions to accurately reflect their positions. And then we added the inclusion specialist. Since we're unable to fill some of the special ed teacher positions, we used those vacant positions to have an inclusion specialist who will help take care of the paperwork and the organizational aspect, to take some of that workload off of teachers so that they can more directly work with students. So looking at director of facilities, again, there were a couple little adjustments that needed to be made. But in terms of the content, any questions or comments, of course, this has been reviewed by Gabe for his feedback and his input. So
Good.
thorough.
They seem like they're, there's a lot of similarities there. Obviously, the transportation has the bus license itself, but they seem to,
In the second bullet under number 7, before on the task assigned by the superintendent is your catch-all for whatever. That's your HR get out of jail.
Yes. Yes. Otherwise, we hear that's not in my job description. Okay, so no questions on that. What about transportation? Once again, this went by Jeff to make sure that it was accurate, which was helpful because I did not have the correct license requirement, that S&P endorsement. I had something different, so he caught that for me. But other than that. Yeah, there are a couple of things here I corrected, yeah. Anything else with this one? All right, then the last one is inclusion specialist. And there are a few little changes here, but it could be confusing to people, so I just want to explain it. So there was a question asked about whether it's special education or special services, okay? So it's special services, it's a special services department. So it's our director of special services, right, or our assistant special ed, our assistant special services director. However, this particular job is responsible for supporting special education, not the whole department in special services, right? So special services can also involve McKinsey-Vento, our multilingual language supports all fall under special services. So I've gone through the policy and the job description, and you will see that in one case, it will say like job goal, for example. I've modified it to say to assist the special services department in ensuring continuity of the district's special education program. So it's going to shift back and forth between special services and special education. That is not an error. It is very intentional. Okay, so I just wanted to be clear about that. And then one other place under 11, it said regular education. That should be general education. That's an old term. We call it gen ed. So I adjusted that. But that's all I have there. Questions or comments about that job description? Then that's all I have for the agenda. So we do need a motion potentially to send these to the board for consideration for first and second read.
All right, yeah, could I get, please get a motion to advance these, let's see, sorry, should we do policies and job descriptions separately
That's up to you. I'm happy just to do it all in
Do it as-
one.
as a bundle?
Mhm.
Yeah. Could I get a motion to do the policies and job descriptions we discussed as a bundle?
I move that we send the policies and job descriptions that we've just discussed to the board for reading. Second reading, first reading, I don't know, for a lot of reading.
Matt with the second, all right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. All right.
So there is no meeting, no policy committee meeting in October, right? You
Right, I'm
cannot be
I'm not
here.
able to.
And yeah, given some of the things that I have coming up, I probably won't be able to get to a lot anyways, but since your chair isn't gonna be here, next meeting will probably be November. Okay,
October 3rd.
yes, October 3rd. So November, I don't know what the date is. November 7th. Okay, so if that's all we have,
Great,
meeting adjourned.
meeting adjourned.
And again, do you get more, do you
Oh, yeah,
want?
thank you very much. Yeah, so for people that are coming in, if anybody wants to speak, if any members of the public want to speak at the public comment section of the full board meeting, there's a sign-in sheet on the podium. There should be a pen right there. If you could, please put your name and residence. And then we'll use that to go through that part of the meeting.